This is the SF Productions Podcast Network.
These are a few of our favorite podcasts.
From the Pop Culture Bunker, I'm Mindy.
And I'm Mark. You can check out our audio podcast, How I Got My Wife to Read Comics, on iTunes or on our website, sfpodcastnetwork.com. Well, we're now in the very end of summer, which means there's not a lot going on in pop culture, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So maybe you're looking for something else to do and looking for some other podcasts. So we thought we'd give you an idea of some of our favorites. I wanted to start with my two inspirations for starting our own podcasts. First one is This Week in Tech. It's Leo Laporte, who helped to start ZTTV and later Tech TV, and then was canned from that, and he wanted to start his own network that he could control. And so he now has dozens of shows, and he basically broadcasts live every day.
They have their own studio.
Right,
And,
yeah.
I think Mark would love to have something like that happen to him, but he doesn't want to put in the work to do it.
Or the money. So the actual This Week in Tech show is essentially a weekly tech roundtable. And they just talk about whatever happened in tech that week.
And you can do it as either an audio or a video podcast.
Yeah, all the Twitch shows are available either way. The other show is Keith and the Girl, and this is about an ex-couple in Queens, New York.
They were a couple when they started doing the show.
And now they're not anymore.
Yeah.
And he's a comedian, originally from rural Pennsylvania, and she's a native New Yorker and lesbian. They do a show every weekday, and they talk about what's happening in their lives, and they talk to their friends, and they also talk about what's going on in the news.
To me, it always struck me as sort of a Howard Stern-ish type show.
I think that's what they're going for. It's mostly very funny. There is a little bit of drama once in a while. It is one of the pioneering podcasts. They've been out there really, I think, since 2005, and this has very much become their career. This is what they're living off of. It's not for the kiddies, though.
No, not at all.
It's definitely an adult show. And then there's some shows that I really look forward to. First is Judge John Hodgman. And this is John Hodgman, who is this very alternate comedian. He's been on The Daily Show.
I think everyone who's watching us would know who John
I would hope
Hodgman
so.
is.
I would hope so. So he, with bailiff Jesse Thorne, they rule on inconsequential arguments.
Yes, it's cute.
Yeah.
I only listen to it in the car with Mark when he's playing it, though.
Mm-hmm.
I'm less of a fan of the humor podcast. My must-listen list starts with basically news podcasts, the Slate podcasts that come out weekly. There's the Political Gabfest, the Culture Gabfest, and the XX Gabfest, which are both bi-weekly, and they cover topics in the news from particular angles. The Political Gabfest talks a lot about the Supreme Court decisions. It's got Emily Bazelon on, who you might have seen on Stephen Colbert. She's been on there several times. But she's really focused on the Supreme Court, and as well as other political issues. And I really like those, and I feel like they keep me up to date with a lot of the current events and news outside of pop culture.
Right. Well, back on my side on comedy, This Week with Larry Miller, basically a stand-up comedian, been out there for many years, has this weekly show. He tells stories about his life as a comedian and what's going on in his life. They do a joke of the week. He reads poetry. Just a lot of different things, but it's a very uplifting, I think, and positive show.
He mostly does that by himself, right?
Right, yeah. It's all him.
I really enjoy, I think it's his show that he asks for donations, sometimes, but he says, send in what a drink would cost where you live, and
Right.
we'll go have a drink.
Yeah.
I love that. I think that's pretty cool. Again, I only listen to Larry Miller when I'm with Mark in the car. So I'll counter Larry Miller, though, with the bird chick, who's Sharon Steitler. I kind of fell into this, I'm not sure how, because I really am not a bird watcher. In fact, I don't like birds at all. Birds terrify me.
Yeah.
But I love listening to Sharon and her husband, who's not a birder, non-birding Bill. They talk about bird topics in the news and bird watching in general. It doesn't sound funny, but a lot of times it really is. And it's another one of those couples podcasts where, you get the interplay between the husband and wife. That's really neat sometimes.
Nice. I really like the Thrilling Adventure Hour. Now, this is these old style radio plays, but it's, you know, modern scripts, but it's very much in that style of old time radio. It's taped at this comedy club in Los Angeles once a month, and they cut it up into podcasts. And there's stars from television and film and stage and comedy that come in and do these shows.
It is really good.
It's very charming.
And you know, sometimes they'll say who the person is that's coming in that's famous, and sometimes they won't. Sometimes you'll just say, hey, wait, that sounds like...
I think who that is, yeah.
Yeah.
And in fact, they just put out this, I don't know if you'd call it an original graphic novel, I suppose. It's all based on the radio plays in the show, and this just came out. They did a Kickstarter for it. I picked up a copy from my local comic book shop a couple weeks ago. So, and I really did enjoy it. Excellent.
So, a book from a podcast. I have a book from a podcast I listen to, too. It's an ongoing serial type of story podcast called The Secret World Chronicles. It's a superhero story, sort of loosely based on the online game City of Heroes. Which I think was closed down, and it just devastated the people who were writing this. But one of my favorite authors, Mercedes Lackey, is involved with this, and there's several other authors. It's really much a shared universe, sort of along the lines of Wild Cards, the George R.R. Martin series that you like so much.
All right.
But it was original podcast, and then it went to books. And they've had 2 or 3 books out now based on the podcast, but I still like the podcast better. A couple other things that I thought I would mention that I like to listen to. All the NPR stuff, most of it is available as a podcast. Right. So there's shows like, well, Car Talk used to be, but since it's not on anymore.
Right.
But Wait, Don't Tell Me. That Ophelia Eisenberg show.
Right, Ask Me Another.
Ask Me Another. All these shows, I think you can get Garrison Keillor, although I don't listen to that. All that stuff is available as a podcast, so you can listen to it whenever you want to, not just on Saturdays in the car, you know?
Yeah.
It's really nice. And then the last one that I listen to a lot, because it's not time sensitive, you know, it doesn't deal with topics in the news, are the podcasts from How Stuff Works. And that's, I think, Discovery Channel or Discovery.com does those. And there's Stuff You Should Have Learned in History Class, Stuff You Should Know. And there are several other ones, but I like them because they talk about things in history, and you don't have to listen to them right away, and that's one you can just go back to and listen when you just have some spare time.
Exactly. So you can check these out at their sites, or you can do it on iTunes. And while you're there, you can check out our other podcast, How I Got My Wife to Read Comics. There's one called SF Classiques. We did kind of like a mini-series of podcasts. I believe it's still out there. As well as Decawatt Playhouse, which was some stuff I was involved in college.
Yes, and Mark might be putting more stuff up in the future.
There's more Decawatt Playhouse coming. I've got some more material for that.
Yeah, and that's pretty much really only of interest to people who went to Grove City College.
Exactly. A very small audience.
You might want to try it out.
Right.
And at the same time, again, check out our podcast on iTunes or on our website, sfpodcastnetwork.com. From the Pop Culture Bunker, I'm Mindy.
And I'm Mark. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.